this is Evgeny Bazhanov with my YouTube channel, The Dialogue of Civilizations, and this is my second talk. As I said last time in my first talk, I'm going to give a series of talks on the United States, the way we saw it with my wife, the way we examined it, studied it, etc. And in my first talk, I described how we arrived in San Francisco in 1973 and worked at the Soviet Consulate General. The job was interesting, at the same time not very easy. And as I described, among those people who used to come to the Soviet consulate, there were quite a few very specific people. And we wondered at the consulate, how come there are so many crazies who visit our consulate? What's the matter? And there were observers in California who used to notice that at that time, governor of California was Ronald Reagan, who later became president of the United States. And Reagan didn't like to collect taxes. He wanted people to keep money. You earn so much money, you keep it. So taxes were very low, and the government didn't have enough money. I mean, the government of California didn't have enough money to cover all needs of the society. And one of the consequences of this fact was that Reagan cut resources allocated for mental houses, and quite a few patients from mental houses were freed. And as soon as they were freed, some of them resumed what they used to do before they got to the med house. Like one fellow, in 1 week he killed 6 persons, including his own mother. It was a very, bad development. So quite a few of these people who were freed from mental houses, they began to visit our consulate, and not only our consulate, they did many other things. And then there were explanations in the California media that there is a special climate in California. It's hot. At the same time, there are a lot of fog, which adds peculiarities to the climate in San Francisco area and on the shore on the coast of the Pacific Ocean. So it also adds to this peculiarities in the behavior of people who live there. And by the way, at that time, later, but in the 70s, a new president of the United States, Mr. Ford, was twice attacked in California. He visited California, and 2 ladies tried to kill him on 2 different occasions. The first lady was Squeaky Fromm, a young lady who didn't like Mr. Ford's policy in the field of ecology. So she decided to kill him, and she was not successful, fortunately. Then another lady, Miss Moore, she was a lady who belonged to a leftist organization, and they suspected her to be associated with FBI. So to prove to her comrades that she was not from FBI, she was a real revolutionary, she decided to kill Mr. Ford. And again, she was not successful, fortunately. And the local press in San Francisco at that time was talking proudly of the fact that if there are 2 ladies who are crazy enough to try to kill American president, both of them live in this very specific California. It was said, it looked for us like there was some pride in that. And but later, with the experience we had throughout our life, we understood that crazy people attack foreign embassies and foreign consulates all over the world. I met quite a few foreign diplomats in Moscow who complained that crazies come in Moscow to their offices. One can predict the future, another one can stop the rain, and people like that. So that's a normal feature for crazies to be attracted to the foreign diplomatic representative offices. And now going back to this entire atmosphere in which we worked in the 70s, I would like to stress the point that, again, that we were very popular. And Later, when we came to San Francisco in the 90s, almost 20 years later, after the Soviet Union collapsed, the situation was very different. We met at that time a fellow who grew up in San Francisco. He was from a Russian family, and his family came from the Soviet Union, but he grew up in San Francisco in the 70s. In the 90s, he was a grown-up man already, and we asked him, how's life for Russians now in the US? He said, when you used to work in San Francisco in the 70s, Russians were treated as Romans. Now we're treated as Italians. Of course, it's not bad to be an Italian, but Romans was a special case. And then we visited our consulate in the 90s and talked to the consul general. And he said to us, can you arrange for me, he said, a meeting with students at Stanford University, some class, political science class, history class. I'd like to deliver a lecture. I cannot achieve it, I try to be invited, but it doesn't, I don't have a response. We were very surprised because in our time, if Soviet Consul General wanted to give a speech at Stanford University and gave a speech at the Stanford University, the entire university would be there. And not only the entire university, but the entire Silicon Valley would be there listening to what he had to say. The time has changed. And the same with reception. At our time, everybody wanted to be at the reception at the Soviet consulate. If you didn't invite somebody, people were angry. One day I remember Natalie Wood, who was a movie star of the Russian origin, by the way, in Hollywood. She calls the consulate, I talked to her. She says, how come you didn't invite me to the reception, which you're going to have next Friday? So I apologized, and she flew from Los Angeles just to participate in that reception at the consulate in San Francisco. And the same happened with the receptions at the Soviet Consulate General. As I said, Natalie Wood calls the Soviet consulate and complains that she has not been invited to a reception. We sent her an invitation, and she comes by plane to San Francisco. And then there is a man calls the Soviet consulate, and he says he's Attorney General of California, one of the highest officials, and he complains that he got an invitation to our reception, but his wife is not mentioned in that invitation card. And I say to him, because I was the one who talked to him on the phone, I said, but we thought you were not married. He said, I was not married, but I married recently. You have to follow the social scene in San Francisco, in California. It's a shame that you haven't invited my wife. So that's how popular our receptions were. And now the Consul General says Americans don't come to the reception at the Soviet consulate, only Russian immigrants come. And in our time, they didn't come in big numbers because we didn't have good relations with Russian immigrants. I'll talk about this later. Anyway, the situation, of course, has changed. And what I would like to say now that, of course, what I describe is just, first impressions of America, and I try to show the peculiarities of working in San Francisco. But of course, our main task was to promote relations with American society, political, cultural, economic, sports relations, and we tried very hard. And in my following talks, I'll discuss all these things in much more detail. But my next talk is going to be on San Francisco. Of course, it's a famous city. It's known all over the world, and I cannot say something which is not known to you, to those who listen to this channel. But I'd like to give the perception of San Francisco, how that city was perceived in the Soviet consulate, and how it was perceived by my wife and myself, our impressions of the city. Thank you so much.